All right, we are live. So welcome back to Dapp University. So today we got a lot to talk about in our live stream. We're going to talk about how Web 3.0 just got a major upgrade, okay, and what you need to understand about this. We're going to look at a lot of other news updates that have happened in the space since our live stream yesterday. Again, we do these live streams Monday through Friday in this channel. Just subscribe, turn on notifications. You're going to find out about those whenever we go live. We're going to answer some of your questions, check on the crypto markets, and a whole lot more. So if you're new around here, hey, I'm Gregory, and on this channel, I turn you into a blockchain master. So if that's something that you're interested in, then smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe to this channel. And if you want to learn how to master blockchain step-by-step start to finish, land your first blockchain job, definitely head on over to dappuniversity.com/bootcamp to get started today. So we got people jumping in the chat here. We got Dale, Kodia, Automatic Beats, Dave Stone, Above Realty, Anthony, Jeff, CJ, Warren, Ajit, J. Lee, Major, Rohan. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, so let's get into this. Let's talk about how Web 3.0 just got a big upgrade, okay? So I want to set the stage for this so that you can understand why this is a big deal. So, some of the limitations that are currently holding Web 3.0 back right now, okay, is basically, scalability. We talk about a lot in this channel. We just had the Ethereum merge come into play. A lot of people were hoping that would fix the scalability problems for Web 3.0. Definitely did not. We have scaling solutions that are in the pipeline for all this type of stuff. We use them now, of course, with layer 2 scaling solutions, basically making blockchain faster and cheaper to use. Of course, we see lots of other alternative layer 1s come onto the scene and try to also fix this problem as well. But scalability is a big issue. And then also basically a compatibility with the outside world, because blockchains are closed ecosystems that do not natively communicate with the outside world. And by basically fixing both of these things, you can essentially unlock a ton of new use cases for Web 3.0 that aren't possible without these. And so we just got a big upgrade in regards to all these things with Chainlink, okay, announcing staking plans aiming to be the AWS of Web3, and then some changes to how Chainlink is going to work in the future. So what is this and why is it significant? Okay, so let's talk about this. So basically, what is Chainlink in the first place? Well, you might have seen it. You might have seen the Chainlink cryptocurrency floating around out there. Okay, so of course, we've seen some pretty impressive price performance from Chainlink relative to other cryptos over the past week or so. I think it's no accident, especially based on this news that's coming out here, particularly around the ability to stake the Chainlink token. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But what is Chainlink? What does it do? Why is it important? Well, they got the Chainlink token, but what's it for? Well, it actually is a token that's useful in the Chainlink ecosystem. So Chainlink is what's called an Oracle network, okay? So what is an Oracle? Why is that important? Well, basically, it's a project. It's a technology that essentially lets you get outside data and use it on the blockchain itself. So essentially, let's say that you wanted to build. Well, first of all, let's set the stage for this. Blockchain is a closed system. So if I'm transacting on the Ethereum network, for example, the only thing that Ethereum really knows about natively is like how much cryptocurrency I have in my wallet. Okay. And then like if I have a smart contract, right, that lets me, let's say it's an NFT, right? So all it knows is like how many people hold those NFTs, what the link to the NFT picture is, how to move those NFTs around. That's only the type of information that it knows natively, right? It doesn't really understand how to, it doesn't know what the weather is, for example, right? If I go to a website and look up the weather, like weather.com or something, there's no way for me to use that information directly on the blockchain. It also doesn't natively know what the price of Bitcoin is, for example, right? People ask me all the time, like, how do you determine the price of a cryptocurrency? Well, it's not like coded into the blockchain or anything like that. Like it's, the market sets the price on cryptocurrency exchanges, and you have to get that information from somewhere. And so how do you get that? Well, that's where Oracle comes into play, okay? Because with blockchains, you have this fundamental problem of providing information to smart contracts and just to the blockchain itself in order to execute that data reliably or to store that data reliably. So what do I mean by that? Well, basically, let's say that you created an app, you're a developer, and your app essentially, needed to get weather information or cryptocurrency price information. Well, you could store that in your own database in your app. Let's say you had a back-end API that essentially, just issued a API request to some weather data provider, okay, and then you pulled that back into your own API and saved it inside your database. Well, that's a pretty common thing to do, right? Inside of a Web 2.0 application. And it's pretty easy to do because really, you just have one web server. I realize there's, scaling with clusters and all that type of stuff. But I mean, let's just say that you have just really one web server instance that's doing that at any given point in time. But with blockchain, it's totally different. So now let's say you have a smart contract that is a program that developer writes, put on the blockchain, and it needs access to like weather data or cryptocurrency price data. Well, essentially, let's say you had to make a GET request to go fetch that from an API, all right, and then save it in your smart contract and put it on the blockchain. Well, you got a massive problem here, okay? You got two big problems. One is that your smart contract is getting the code of that is essentially getting executed collectively by several different nodes at the exact same time. Okay, so essentially, like, you have a smart contract that's deployed to a bunch of different computers, and they all have to achieve consensus on what the answer is. So that's like kind of like a race condition in one respect. So you can't have everybody just like making requests or whoever does it to validate the transaction, right? So that's one problem. The other problem is that you actually have to trust that the data that's getting provided to the smart contract is actually accurate. And that's where an oracle comes into place. So you could have an oracle that essentially solves that first problem that I'm talking about. If you could have an oracle where somebody just manually inputs the information into the smart contract, and then that gets included onto the blockchain itself, okay? But then you have to trust that. So how do you put information onto a smart contract platform that essentially you have a pretty good idea that the answer is right? So if your smart contract asks for the price of Bitcoin, how do you know it's going to give you the right answer of like, $19,393.24, right? What if you had an oracle that was like malicious and gave you wrong information? What if it told you the price was $1, right? Imagine what kind of catastrophe that would be inside your program. So that's where Chainlink comes into play as a decentralized Oracle network, where you have multiple people who are essentially getting that information and aggregating it into a more trusted source that you can use inside of your projects. And so we have lots of big projects that already use Chainlink, especially in DeFi. Okay, like Aave, Compound, DYDX, Synthetics. Okay, some of the big names use Chainlink already. And they do it with this exact way that I'm talking about and the exact purpose. So Chainlink's been around for a while, okay? It was one of the stars of the 2018, 2019 bear market when everything else was, kind of in really bearish territory. Saw some pretty impressive performance by the Chainlink token, okay? Pretty early on. And, Chainlink is about to get a big upgrade in how it works. So, one of the potential drawbacks with a solution like Chainlink is it can be kind of expensive, okay? And this newest update is going to help that problem, okay? So that's got to do with scalability, making it sort of cheaper to use, and then also, talking about having staking features built into Chainlink, which I think could be a big deal for the actual cryptocurrency itself. So, a lot of these updates are kind of taking a lot of cues from Ether, I would say, and not just Ether, but other blockchains that are running like proof of stakes type services. And also, what I want to clarify here is Chainlink is not a blockchain, okay? Chainlink is an Oracle network. It works with multiple blockchains, okay? You can use it on pretty much everywhere there's smart contracts. Okay, Chainlink has a presence there. So I wanted to emphasize that. But basically, we're seeing some big upgrades from scalability with their scale program, which is going to reduce the cost of putting Oracle data and reports on chain by further boosting development and splitting costs among greater number of participants. Okay, so we're seeing lots of efforts to scale with many other blockchains, kind of the name of the game. Okay, and that effort is getting mirrored here in Chainlink, which is going to. And the whole point of this is that Web 3.0 is getting a big upgrade because as we create more things that are scalable, including the ability to pull out outside data and turn it into real world applications, that's going to be a game changer for all the use cases that we can essentially bring to Web 3.0. So let's say you had smart contracts that relied upon that, did insurance settlement. Okay. So what if you, needed to check the weather in a location for like an insurance report, and you need to put that inside of a smart contract? Well, you could do it with Chainlink. Okay. And, as we make that better and more scalable, that's a step in that direction that opens up all these use cases that you don't really have or aren't scalable right now. So basically, the project will contribute a portion of their revenue in the form of tokens in return for premium Chainlink services such as data feeds with higher update frequencies to enable more advanced and low latency smart contract applications, again, in the name of scaling. Okay. So the new economic model for platform also includes a sister program build for early stage projects, which will give them priority access to services and advanced support in return for contribution of their native token. All right. So, Chainlink provides these different services, including price data feeds, weather data, random number generation, which is big for gaming. Okay. Web 3.0 gaming is definitely a big theme and a trend for the future. And, as we improve the scalability of random number generation for gaming, that will be big as well. So they're talking about basically Chainlink turning into a decentralized data services platform akin to AWS. Okay, that's kind of how they're positioning it. But the last thing I want to talk about with this is, what Chainlink plans to do with their token. Okay, so Chainlink staking arrives in December, and we all know people love tokens that stake. So that's one of the reasons I think we're seeing some bullish price action on Chainlink over the past 7 days, especially relative to other cryptos in the same time frame. So the Scale and Build program helps underpin Chainlink's long-awaited staking rewards scheme. So the program will help cover operating costs with Chainlink Oracle networks, and the native tokens will also become available to stakers, all right, community members who use Link to secure the network and obtain rewards for doing so. So Chainlink's going to go live in December, so that's really just in a few short months. We'll go across all these different tiers depending on eligibility. Okay, so staking is going to distribute the value. Okay, sorry, I misread that. Staking is going to distribute the value the system accrues to relevant participants and nodes, like nodes and stakers. Okay, so early experimental version 1 emphasized the opportunity for adopters to join in the staking pool early on. So we're talking about basically, node operators, people who run the Chainlink nodes. Like I was talking about before, it's a decentralized Oracle network. So if you are pulling in information from the outside world and participating in that consensus that writes the information to the smart contracts, then you are essentially a node operator, and there's going to be staking sort of built into that, which is kind of similar. It's kind of riffing off the idea of like being a validator on a proof of stake network where you're taking cryptocurrency and locking it up and staking to the network so that you can validate transactions, a lot like Ether is right now for the Ethereum network. Okay, so we see a lot of cues taken from there. So anyways, this is definitely something to watch out for. This is a big deal. Oracles are definitely going to play a critical role in the Web 3.0 future. They already pay one now, and they are getting better as we speak. So definitely watch out for this update. Not one you want to miss. It says, I love stake and tokens. So, speaking of stake and tokens and taking cues from Ethereum, saw this floating around Twitter yesterday. Definitely have to make a mention of it today. So this was some Chipotle. So like the Chipotle, the burrito restaurant, having a special promotion for Ethereum. So I was like, this is crazy. So literally, like the Chipotle that you're probably thinking of, tweeted, 99.95% off a steak bowl. Anyone? Here's why. A thread. So it's totally riffing off like the, thought leadership pontification that happens on Twitter all the time. So Ethereum's recent move to proof of stake could mean that ETH now uses 99.95% less energy. So get 99.95% off a new garlic. I don't even know how you pronounce this. Guajillo Am I saying that right? Steak entree when you spend your ETH, okay, using Flexa at Chipotle. So this is probably some sort of like sponsorship. Anyways, expires on October 4th, or 20,000 in total redemptions. So whichever one comes first. So and restaurant only, no digital orders. Okay. So this is like a legit meme for ETH proof of stake. Which, if you've been on Twitter long enough, you've seen somebody take a picture of a steak when they're eating out and say proof of stake. So I thought that was pretty clever. So the other thing about it is, you know, everybody is talking about how, Ethereum and the merge is no big deal. Nobody on the street cares about it. And there's some truth to that for sure. But if it was an absolute non-event, then you wouldn't see people like Chipotle doing promotions about it. I realize this is a very limited thing, and it's probably sponsored by Flexa, especially because the Medium link goes back to Flexa's own blog. But yeah, I thought that was good. Makes things more significant than the haters say. I put it that way. So why is random number generation so critical for gaming? So anytime that you're playing, there's lots of different use cases. So in order for a game to be fun, it can't be predictable. Okay. So randomness of movements from bots, random. I mean, there's so many different ways that you could implement randomness. Okay. I mean, a pretty easy one is thinking of like card shuffling or dice rolling, right? Those are pretty easy things to understand. You need a random sorted deck of cards. Okay. Or if you're rolling dice, of course, those need to be random. If you're flipping a coin, anything that has gambling associated with it, okay, definitely needs to have random generation. And you can't really do true randomness with solidity inside of the blockchain. And there's some things you can do to do pseudo randomness. This is a pretty controversial topic about like random number generation, but I won't get off too far in the weeds on that one. But there's lots of things you need random number generation for in gaming. Basically, the bottom line is so that it's not predictable. I mean, think about anything like, like let's say you're at let's say you had a game that was like a batting cage or something, and you're supposed to like hit a ball that's getting pitched to you. Well, you don't want to guess exactly. You don't want to know exactly when it's going to, go out of the shooter, whatever you call that thing, right? You want to have some sort of unpredictable time interval. And the code could be as simple as like, okay, the maximum interval is 5 seconds, and then just subtract a random number between 1 and 5 as the next interval for when the next ball is going to come out. You know what I mean? It's like there's all kinds of ways you could use it. Or if you had like a game where you have players on a field or something like that, and you want to have a random positioning for your your opponent's players, or a random set of players that are on the field, or people who have a random set of traits. There's all kinds of things. I think I might go have me a Chipotle proof of steak burrito. Sounds pretty good. Okay, so let's look at a couple other things for sure. Let's check on. We're gonna look at some stuff that's happening in the Ethereum space, and also check on the crypto markets here. So I do want to check on the status of the ETH being burned on the network. So we talked about this a little bit some earlier this week, maybe the end of last week, I can't remember. But you know, there's a lot of people that are like looking at the ETH supply and saying, "Hey, it's not deflationary." You know, we've been had. You know what I mean? And you know, if you watch this channel at all ahead of the Ethereum merge before the transition to proof of stake, I always said that, you know, we don't necessarily know that ETH is going to be deflationary immediately after the merge. Okay, we are burning ETH whenever new transactions are created, but we're creating far less ETH than we were before whenever, you know, new blocks are added to the blockchain. Okay, and currently we are on larger time on, you know, this past monthly time frame or so. You know, we have not we've issued more ETH than we have burned from transactions, which means it's still inflationary. So but still it's less inflationary than it would be. All right. So you can see this on large time frames. Like here's where we're at now. Here's where we would have been if we had not turned off of proof of work and switched to proof of stake. And here's what Bitcoin's doing as a reference comparison. Okay. So, but one thing I do want to call out is that, well, first of all, what I was saying before is that ETH would likely be deflationary on very large time frames. So like if you annualized this stuff, when I say annualized, I don't mean take these statistics and extrapolate them out for a year, because obviously that would still produce inflation. But what I mean is, like, if you look at this over long periods of time, once we have that historical data based upon network adoption, that we would likely see net net deflation or negative inflation. So it'll take some time, I believe, before that happens. But you have to understand that, like, it's only been, you know, this is really since September 15th. That hasn't even been 2 full weeks yet. You have to understand that. And, you know, 2 weeks of 0.19% inflation can basically be erased by like 1 day of really frothy activity on the Ethereum network. Like, you have to understand that. So once you factor that in, that's the type of stuff that can cause ETH to become deflationary over long periods of time. And so one thing I want to call out here is that yesterday we did have a deflationary day. Okay, so if you measure from, you know, here, we'll see from here, if I can get it right. I have a hard time pulling it up on the chart. I wish there was an easier way to go zoom in there, but basically, if you measure the statistics, we had a full day of deflationary ETH, just like we did back here. So they're starting to happen, and you can kind of see the peaks and troughs, the volatility that goes up along the way, the undulation, I should say. So that's an update on that. And you can also see them here. All right. So basically, if you went here yesterday and went this on the 1 day time frame, you could see the difference. So basically, here's a good comparison. If you'd taken the entire activity from last year, okay, well, really with all the data since EIP 1559 went live, which would be a little more than a year, okay, and then you simulate, basically keep it with the issuance that's there now. This is how much ETH that would have been burned during that time frame. This is how much ETH would have been issued during that time frame. And so say that we had that amount of network activity, it would have been minus 1.38% inflationary, or that much deflationary. So So Eric, I see your message there. I will follow up with you after this. Let's take a quick look at the crypto markets here. So anyways, we talked before about what's going on with Chainlink. So Chainlink's definitely had some positive price performance. Again, everything I was talking about before with Chainlink is definitely not financial advice, not investment advice. I'm not saying buy Chainlink token. It's not a sponsored video or anything like that ahead of the staking feature, but that's one to have watched out for over the past week or so. Let's take a quick look at the crypto markets. We got a little bit of recovery after some of the craziness we saw yesterday. So, you know, it's almost like we're back to drawing BART on the Bitcoin chart. You know, we saw this right here, instantly correct. This looks like a short term. I haven't done any deep analysis on what this price action was, but it smells like a short term, you know, just leverage bubble. We see these a lot. When things are basically trading sideways and you see a pretty significant, you know, move to the upside and a quick reversal, it's usually just some anomalies happening with leverage, or not usually, but it often is. I haven't done enough analysis on what's going on with the open interest and blah 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 liquidations, but that's what it looks like to me. So other than that, it's pretty much just flat, sideways, boring. You know, we talked about some of the headwinds for the entire crypto space the entire year, okay, and how we could see some good signs from those on the horizon. You know, talking about tightening monetary policy, you know, people's flight to dollars, how the dollar could potentially be in a bubble that, you know, could pop relatively soon on the grand scheme of things. We're seeing some evidence in favor of that, okay? It's too early to tell, really too early to tell. But we do see some slowing, at least in the past 5 days for the U.S. dollar index, okay? It's very possible that we are, you know, getting close to the end of the dollar run, but we'll wait and see. You know, I'm seeing lots of people talk about that. We talked yesterday a little bit about the dollar milkshake theory of people running to dollars in order to service debts. Here's the other thing about the dollar is it's not necessarily in the U.S.'s. Not really. I do not try to pretend to be a macro expert on this channel. Mostly just try to listen to people who are talking about macro as it pertains to the crypto markets, and, you know, distill the arguments in a way that you can understand them. Because really, I'm not trying to step out my lane and be like, you know, make the very obvious case that I don't know what I'm talking about. But basically, you know, we have a lot of people talking about the dollar milkshake theory, the idea that people need, you know, the people have to flight dollars, not just, of course, is a safe haven asset when everything is on fire and nuking, like the stock market, like crypto, like potentially, you know, real estate's, you know, feeling the pressure too, right? People want to hold dollars for that reason, but also, you know, foreign countries having to hold dollars in order to service debts, all right, to do trade, all that type of stuff. So here's the other thing is, you know, we're seeing other you know, currencies really break down relative to the U.S. dollar. I mean, we're talking about the British pound here. Is, you know, lots of people are talking about this. You have to understand though, like, another view on this is that, like, it's not necessarily in the best interest for the dollar to be too strong, right? Like, you don't want the dollar to be too strong relative to other currencies. You don't want other, you know, economies to just, like, first and foremost, we don't really, this is like economic, like global trade doesn't have to be a zero-sum game where, like, one country, you know, wins and others lose, right? That's the beauty of capitalism. It can be a very positive sum thing where, you know, we all grow the pie together and we all share in the spoils of that progress, right? So that's definitely true. But I guess what I'm saying here is you don't want the dollar to get too strong because essentially, like, we need people to trade with, right? We need other economies to also be strong, right, in order to all work together towards this. So, you know, as much as we talk about interest rates, et cetera, they're watching what's happening with the dollar is definitely going to be a factor. We looked at the view yesterday that it's not necessarily what's going on with the dollar that's driving this. It really is just the economic policy. The whole view of the dollar sort of the passenger, not the driver for this move. But that's definitely one to watch out for. So I imagine that's going to be a data point that is watched by many players to get a picture of what's going on and whether we're doing too much, put it that way. Yeah, above Realty saying the other side land drop burned 55,000 ETH in a couple of hours. So if that is any reference, we've only issued 8,000 ETH since the merge. So let's say you annualize that out. When I say annualize this time, I really do mean extrapolate that out over a large time frame. So 8,415 divided by 2. It's basically been about 2 weeks. I'm just going to use that as a statistic. That'd be 4,200 times 52. That'd be 218,000. So if the other side did a land drop like that, minus, let's say 55,000 divided by 218,000. That would be, let's see here, hold on. That'd be basically a quarter of the yearly supply in one day, or really just like a few hours. All right, everybody. That's all I got for today. As always, smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. They really helps these videos out so that more people can learn about blockchain. And, if you're as fast with this technology as I am, you want to get your hands dirty, how can you get started today? You can go to my YouTube homepage. You can find these free courses there. They're like Udemy courses, but they're totally free. If you like those, you want to do the next step, or hey, maybe you're taking a master shortcut entirely, I can show you a master blockchain step-by-step start to finish over at dappuniversity.com/bootcamp. You have to be an expert to get started today. Help people with zero coding experience become real-world blockchain developers in a matter of months. So that's all I've got. Until next time,